Nikita?
Yep, just give me 1 minute.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for
We are live. Sorry.
yet another amazing story. Um, my name is Sunil Satyavolu, co-founder Profile and AdSense. At Profile, we build an effective 360-degree profile of all the learners to ensure educators, parents, and students themselves are aware of their strengths and areas of improvement. This is basically a self-discovery platform to help students understand their capabilities so that areas of improvement can be highlighted. Successful people have never give up attitude. They fail and they rise. The deeper they fail, the higher they rise. And this is what grit is. The most important element of every human's life to become successful in turning their dreams to reality. Grit is one of the most important element of human growth, and it is measured as a part of social and emotional learning along with four other important elements, which is growth mindset, metacognition, self-efficacy, and sociability. As famously said, every child needs a champion, but how do they get access to champions? Learn from struggles during the process and not just think of results. How can someone build a rock solid resilience to fight all the odds and achieve more? I'm thrilled to welcome Elca Grobler, mother of the three children, uh, two daughters and one son, uh, and a wife of loving husband. Let me quickly do an introduction. I'm gonna play a video now.
The topic of domestic violence and sex trafficking is not a comfortable topic. It's not necessarily something people want to hear about, but that doesn't take away the magnitude and the prevalence or the existence of it. Unfortunately, India has been once again ranked the country that's the most dangerous in the world to be born a baby girl. But what does it mean? I mean, we sometimes get overwhelmed with the numbers and the stats, but I think we still need to give context to that. In India, almost close to 50% of married women face domestic violence. We know that the numbers are that almost 50% of children in India are being sexually abused. And if we look at child marriage, which is a form of domestic violence or sexual abuse, 40% of the child marriages in the world still take place in India. The challenge is not just the child marriages. The problem is the moment that you marry off a child, her likelihood of being abused or being part of domestic violence is higher. So when you marry below 18, the domestic violence incidence rate actually goes up to almost 78%. So that's the domestic violence situation. If we come to trafficking, and specifically sex trafficking, which is what we focus on and what we work with, once in every 3 minutes, a girl is being trafficked for sexual slavery. And unfortunately, the average age of these girls are now only 12 years old. So that, what does it mean? It actually means that a 12-year-old girl gets trafficked, and sexual slavery means that she gets raped up to 40 times a day. Most of these girls are being locked up or kept hidden. Many of the times they're actually just being kept naked and not given any food. The big thing about trafficking is not just the number of girls that are being trafficked, it is that only 1% of these girls are ever getting rescued. And so when you look at our work and the work we do, the majority of our work, even in the domestic violence side, is about prevention. It's about how can we prevent this from happening. But that is the situation, and that's I think why our team gets up every day and goes to work every day, is knowing that there's a lot of help needed, and there's a lot of girls who cannot speak up for themselves.
So it's an honor for me to introduce Elca Grobler today. She holds an honors in economics and mathematical statistics She holds a CFA and received her MBA at Australian Graduate School of Management. Elka moved to India in 2011 from Australia with her husband and 3 young children, following a calling she felt to serve women in India by working for their education and empowerment. Elka strongly believes in justice and equality for all the women and girls. Previously, Elka has never lived in India before. Under Elka's leadership, um, My Choices Foundation has won several awards for its creative campaigns addressing gender-based violence. In 2017, My Choices Foundation was awarded the VR for Good project by Oculus and Facebook and created the world's first VR documentary on sex trafficking, beating the like of Coca-Cola. Also in 2017, of 17,000 alumni over the last 40 years at the AGSM business schools, Elca Grobler was chosen to be profiled and recognized in the short video directed in India. Not long after that, Elka was honored by UNSW of Social Impact and Public Policy out of 290,000 graduates in 146 countries. Since then, for 3 consecutive years in the row 2018, 19, and 20, Elka was recognized as one of the 100 most influential CSR leaders by World CSR and World Sustainability Congress and World Federation of CSR Professionals. It has been an absolute honor hosting you, Ms. Elka, today. Thank you so much for considering. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Sunil. It's for us always an honor and a privilege to share about our work. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation because you are a social entrepreneur yourself, and have won several national and multinational awards also for the films you've been making and the lake reservation. So, I know your heart is thriving in the same place as which we are. So we're really looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Thank you so much. As a part of the Grit Stories, we bring the how part of the what journey. So far, you have spoken in several platforms, and it has been a phenomenal inspiration for many people. Grit Stories is going to put your effort under a different light to understand and also let people understand what a true calling means and when do you actually listen to that and then immediately pick it up. For you to move from Australia to India and then do something like this takes a lot of grit. I mean, it is a pure grit is what I see. And that's where I also feel happy when I refer to you as a hope creator. I think that's exactly what you're doing. So on this particular format, I'm going to take quickly a few seconds to explain. So Grit Stories is usually a conversation which goes in 4 different parts. We have created an abbreviation for GRIT. G stands for goals, R stands for responsibilities, I for influencers, and then T for transformation. So each section will have a conversation based on that, and we'll also encourage the participants to post some questions. If they are not answered already as a part of our conversation, we'll kind of take those questions. I see overall about 30 to 35 minutes is where we spend a conversation on this particular topic. So without any further delay, I'm super thrilled, even though one of the forums that you spoke, I have seen you getting emotional. That has been my trigger. And I have mentioned this to several people. How can somebody feel pain of others without even meeting them before, not even having any family relationship or any association prior to that? I mean, that triggered me a huge amount of emotion saying that how can one human feel for some another human who's not even directly related? I think on that note, I am personally excited to have this conversation now. So quickly, how did this journey start? Meaning, can you quickly walk us through how did this grit drive you all the way from Australia to India?
Thank you, Sunil. And I sometimes say for the long story, you'll have to come and have chai with me in Hyderabad. But seeing that we don't have, a couple of hours to discuss, we've got, a short time. There's a thing which they call your righteous anger. It's the thing that keeps you up at night. And it's not a hatred. It's a righteous anger. It's a drive to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. And I have this almost life belief that I share sometimes, that says a dream is something that you want to do and a calling is something that you have to do. And I think, if you look at social entrepreneurs all over the world, the type of issues that they try and address and try and solve are mostly difficult issues, and many instances they have to spearhead the initiative, to come to the problem with a different solution, to think about it differently. And so just if I think of grit, and then I'll share a little bit of my story, is I know there's different definitions, but grit is sort of having purpose, then having passion for what you do, and then you have to persevere. And almost the last P, I think of it as 4 Ps, is you have to have a plan B. I think many people sometimes think if you fail at plan A, you have failed. But plan B actually just means that you are flexible, and I think for everybody that displays grit, it is that purpose, it is that passion, it is that perseverance, but it's also flexibility, to be able to admit if you think you've made a mistake and to move on and get up with another thing. So for my story, I've been in finance most of my life, but I've always had this inner compelling, almost this inner, somewhere between, as I said, anger and really, really love for girls and for what girls all over the world face. And I think, the closer you get to them, the more you realize, how marginalized many of these girls are. There's a quote that says, sometimes you can only hear somebody's pain if you get up close, And so when we moved to Hyderabad, I've never been in Hyderabad before. And actually the aim was, we were at a phase of our life where we felt, we want to actually use the skills that we have, the experience we've built up, to go and have an impact more in the social sector. And my husband and I both resigned. The kids were 4, 6, and 9, I think, when we moved to Hyderabad. I know there's a funny story that I sometimes share. I think the 2nd or 3rd day we were in Hyderabad, we were in Falaknuma at Charminar. And there's a photo of us standing on the side of the road, and we literally could not cross the road. There were just too many water buffaloes and people and tuk-tuks and I can now proudly say I know how to just put out my hand and let the traffic stop and walk over. But when we moved to Hyderabad, what I thought is going to be my story is to spend time with existing organizations and just be part of them and be part of their financial literacy programs for women. So I spent the first 6 months in Hyderabad trying to visit as many NGOs, communities, basti meetings, small co-ops, and I sat with the women. I sat on the floor, and I had so many meetings or chats and so many chais. And if you speak to the women, once they start opening up after a minute or 2 minutes, they don't actually share with you the financial problems. They share with you the domestic violence problems, the problems they face at home, not them, just them, but also their children and especially their girls. And what they say is that financial freedom doesn't actually mean that much if you get beaten up every day, or if you're not allowed to go out of the house, or if you're locked up, or if you are starved. And it was from that, I think, realization, what these women face every day, and also the realization that most of them don't actually know that they have access to protections and rights. There was a huge gap between their reality and what is actually available to them. They just did not know that there's a Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. They did not know that they have rights. They did not know they have protections. And that's where Operation Peacemaker was born out. There was nothing like that at that point. So although we would have liked to partner, because we really believe in partnerships, we had to build this from the ground up. and I think the other thing where the grit came in is we realized that the only way we will be able to bring change into a community or change into a home is if it comes from within. Because a home has got locked doors. You don't always get to see what's happening inside. So the only way we can do this is if we train the local women to be the change makers. And there's another, thinking that sometimes all you have to do to lift women up is not to pull them down. And we have been blown away by you talk about grit in leadership, about the grit in these women who have to go into their communities, and address the violence and then bring them to our centers. So I think for us as a leadership team, grit has been amazing, but the grit we see every day in these women and these girls are extremely inspiring.
Phenomenal stuff. So when you spoke about something, dream is something you want to do, but calling is something that you have to do. I think that actually is the goal setting element for you, I believe, right? So that's how you basically set up this goal on how do I achieve this? How do I kind of probably contribute in so many lives, and how do I touch so many lives? Now, how did you even think of such a humongous dream? Because it's not a very reasonable dream. It's an insane dream, if you ask me. So how did you dream? How did you plan? What was the what was going in your mind? What were the milestones that you have? I mean, how do you track yourself towards your milestones?
Yes. So Sunil, I must say, I think sometimes still today our team, wake up and we almost have to pinch ourselves. This 8-year journey we've been on in the last 8 years, and almost, I think sometimes when you do get a little bit overwhelmed, you have to just step back and say, we're not doing this for us. We're doing this to impact lives, and it kind of just sometimes center your fear almost a little bit. But to come back to how was this built, or how do you get to this point? I mean, I always say you have to have small steps, but big dreams. You have to have big dreams. You have to really think what will completely transform, but then start with one step. Brian Stevenson also, and I'll maybe refer to him a little bit later, who's one of my heroes, and he's a lawyer, but he said, it's not just about ideas in your mind, it's about the conviction of the heart. So take that ideas in your mind, but then make it a reality. And so if I get back to the small step, big dream, I think what was actually sometimes in my advantage is that I'm not a social worker and I'm not a lawyer. I come with a finance background. So when we had to design this program, and the reason we designed it the way we designed it is we realized that the only way we're going to get access to the community is from the community. So we have to equip them. We have to empower as many women and as many girls as we can. And the only way we can do that is to give something to train them, and so that they can then go and have these, transformation. And that's how it kind of grew. And I think, as I said, for me, if you think, what is the goal of My Choices Foundation? And we thought about our name a lot, My Choices. It's to provide every woman and girl the choices to live a life free from abuse. But it's not her choice or your choice. It's all of us. We all have a choice to play a role, whether we're the bystander, whether we're the family, whether we're a friend. We have choices. And that's where My Choices came from. That's how it was built, is to actually give the empowerment and equipment into the hands of the women in the community. So we train them, we call them peacemakers. And again, it wasn't driven by this magical idea. It was driven by the need. What do we have? We have close to 50% of Indian women facing domestic violence. We have 40% of child marriages in the world still happening in India. We have a girl every 3 minutes being trafficked. and then raped up to 30 or 40 times a day. And the average age is 12 years. So if that is what we want to address, we have to dream big. But we have to start within the community and have as many partners as we can. So literally, Sunil, we started with one batch of peacemakers. Me and a friend sort of developed the whole program or material. And as I think it was in our advantage that I didn't speak Hindi or Urdu because we started in Hyderabad, and I wasn't a lawyer or social worker. And so we realized that whatever we have to develop needs to be understood by someone who we train, but then who has to take that into her community. And that's sort of how the program grew. We started with one center in Falaknuma, training a group of peacemakers. We call them peacemakers because they bring peace into the homes and the houses. And if somebody asks me still to today, we had 40 peacemakers that showed up for our first training day. And if you still ask me what was your most almost scary or difficult day, I'll always say it was day 2 of the training of the peacemakers. Because what if nobody came back? Like, what if, because this was our dream, is to equip women to go and make this difference. But what if on day 2, nobody came back? Then how are we going to do this? And subsequently, since we started Operation Peacemaker, our counselors, and we now have 5 centers, sort of crisis and counseling centers all across Hyderabad and Warangal. We have counseled more than 9,000 families and reached more than 63,000 girls in schools and colleges, and more than 80,000 women across all our Basti meetings, which means in the hands of these women and girls, we give them access to the counseling centers, to a national toll-free number, to what are their rights are, how can they be protected? We have a safe phone. And we didn't, yes, we dreamed big, but we started with one center. And just one last thing, they say that you have to have clarity around your vision, and then you have to have an unwavering commitment to what could be or what should be. Meaning, what should life look like? Life should be where we don't have 50 million girls being killed as infants or fetus in the last 50 years. What life should look like, is that it's not so dangerous for a girl just to be born. So for us every day, when we develop our programs, design our programs, we think of what should be. And then we work with an almost unrealistic drive and commitment to what a world could look like if women and men both hold up the sky and walk alongside each other.
Brilliant stuff. Now, the last question in the goals section of GRIT. When it comes to setting up the goal, how important is it for everybody, and how did you handle it, specifically knowing the limits aspect of it? So you set up a goal, you should also know the limits, saying, okay, this is the worst it can go, or these are the boundaries I have to operate. So how did you handle that situation?
It's a good question. I think we sometimes overshoot our boundaries, and sometimes some members of the team will say, listen, we're going too fast. We have to, kind of just get our bearings and our feet again. But again, we have to be able to do uncomfortable things in order to have transformative change. So I think when you talk about boundaries, yes, but I don't think in our world it's ever going to be comfortable. We're not in a place where our boundaries are almost a comfortable boundary. But what I can say is at our organization, we have what we call our credo. And before somebody actually even joins, we share this credo with them to see if they're going to fit into the culture of our organization. Because as you'll know yourself, your biggest asset is your human resources. and our culture defines who we are and how we operate. And I think if you talk about goals, we are very, very strong on saying we strive for excellence, not for perfection. We're never going to be perfect. And if you wait for that moment that your program is perfect, or your campaign is perfect, or your forum that you're setting up is perfect, you're probably never going to get there. But within the organization, if we know that everybody is given their best and they strive for excellence in whatever we do, that is almost the goal. That's the internal goal. And then if you look at obviously external goals, I think what makes it a little bit harder for us is we are never going to run out of work, unfortunately. Obviously we hope there's a day where there's no more violence. We hope there's a day that there's no more abuse. We hope there's a day where there's no more sexual exploitation. But that might be in the generations to come, and we will keep on sowing the seeds as much as we can and water it, so that those trees grow, and we'll have to hand over the baton to the next generation. But our goals is to have as much impact as we can at the moment, setting up programs so that it can be scalable. And our operations have to be really strong, because we are so cognizant of the fact that we deal with lives every day. Every goal counts and every minute counts. And so the idea is not to burn out. The idea is to always make sure, are we doing this optimally? Are we doing this in a fact that we can scale? Are we doing this so that it's replicable? So I just want to give you one example. It was a big dream of us. So we have a national toll-free line, both for domestic violence and anti-sex trafficking, which are the only two national helplines for that. But we've recently completed this program with a group of TIS volunteers, so you'll be glad to hear that, where we've literally taken all our programs and we've made it digital, and they will be placed on online education platforms like Udemy, For You, Chocolate, which means this is then replicable, scalable in India, or anybody can go and almost get a certificate and be trained across all our programs. And so for us, our goal is always, how can we use technology? How can we use partners, people that are more clever than us, people that are more clever than us in social media, in technology. And if we partner, then that partnership is so much stronger than the components of that partnership. So I think that's our overall goal. As much impact, doing it with as many partners, using everything that's available to us.
Just concluded the goals section of our conversation.
Oh, you must tell me if I take too long.
No, that's totally fine. I mean, the idea is to, as you rightly mentioned, have it effective, not just kind of finish the goal, right? So I think you're absolutely fine.
Thank you.
So in the responsibilities category in grid stories, so 3 kids and moving to a different place. How do you balance your responsibilities while you pursue your passion? How did that treat you actually?
That's also a very good question. I think, we all have something that drives us from within. I know for you, it's sort of nature sort of conservation around the lakes. And I know one of the lakes you worked on is actually close to one of our centers in Golconda. And if we get to the responsibility side, I think, as a leader, you have to realize that you have a responsibility towards yourself. You have a responsibility towards your family. And then you have a responsibility towards your team. And then you have a responsibility towards the people you serve. Those are the different components that make it up. And if one of them goes completely out of balance, then it's a little bit like a building block or a Jenga stack or a house of cards. If you don't ensure that you feed into all four of those, at some point, one of them is going to really struggle. So if I think, my first responsibility almost towards myself and my family, and, for us as a family, we moved from Australia to India, to, a country that we didn't know, a culture that we didn't know, languages we didn't speak, and my kids were young, but we were certainly ready for the adventure. I think it turned into much more than an adventure that we could ever have hoped for or dreamed for. As I said, I certainly didn't step out thinking this is what we're going to build. But that's where I think the grit comes in, and if you sit with a wrong that you want to right. So the responsibility with the family was to make sure that I think there were two things. I needed to make sure, especially my children are protected, but they're also exposed. It is important, especially in the work we do, that we, my husband and I, involved our children on this journey, so that the significance, there's a saying that says we're not all called to live a life of prominence, but we are all called to live a life of significance. And if there were so many things that we changed in their life, we really wanted them to understand why are we doing this? Why are we here? Why are we building this? So we had a responsibility towards our children, for them to understand, which made it actually so much more of a family journey and adventure, and my oldest daughter is going to study human rights law, and she interned at My Choices, and I know that their lives have been forever changed by India, the hospitality, the friends we've made, the way India has welcomed us. It's a gift. I feel it's the biggest gift we could have given our children, is this experience. And so for that, I'm forever grateful. And then the responsibility towards the team. Our team is everything, you'll know that, I'm sure I realize that the work we do can be grueling many days, and many days our team is faced, and we are faced with so much grief and heartache and abuse and the darkness of humanity, that we have a responsibility towards each other, to look after one another. It's extremely important to make sure if we can see somebody's taking strain, to give them some time, to give them counseling. We have a lot of capacity building sessions within our team. And as leadership, we then have responsibility to then keep that up with all our team members. But it's a very purposeful responsibility. It's not ad hoc. It's not, sending a newsletter once a month and asking your team, how many numbers or how many people, or it's not that. It's how are you doing? How can we help you? And then the last responsibility, which I mentioned, which is just last, but it's actually first, is our responsibility towards the women and girls we serve. Ultimately, everything we do, what we live for, what we breathe for, what we plan for, what we grieve for, are the women and the girls. And we have a responsibility to make sure that we reach as many of them in such a way that they are transformed, impacted, and empowered. So that's how I see almost the four corners of responsibility.
Now, as a part of your passion, unfortunately, it's an expensive passion. You deal with a lot of stress and negativity and all the kind of sadness across everybody that you speak to, right? Obviously, it's not a very pleasant moments where you have to meet them. Obviously, when they're kind of transformed in their life, you might go there and then just say hi. It will be a pleasant conversation later. But when you actually, the very purpose of your association with them is basically to understand their pain and then try to take out. So how do you deal with this stress? What are the things that you do? Because it needs immense amount of passion, plus positivity around you, and also that courage to kind of get up every day morning and then sign up for the same amount of pain. And by the time evening, you again have to kind of deal with it, because next day morning you need to get up and again go with a lot of positivity. How do you deal with this actually?
That's a very good question, Sunil, and I would like just to take a couple of moments to talk through this. There's a quote that I read that says, "We will not win this battle by killing what we hate, rather by protecting what we love." And it's something that we, as our organization, really are very purposeful also, is that we don't do our work out of a place of hate or bitterness, because it's going to slowly eat you up, and it's going to cripple you. We have to do our work out of a place of love and protection. And Mother Teresa once said, for love to be genuine, it doesn't have to be that impactful or large. You just have to love without stop loving, without getting tired to love. And we have this, everybody in our team, and we have this saying which everybody is extremely familiar with. And when you say it, our team immediately knows what we talk about. We call it dragon slayers. So everybody in our team, our counselors, our partners, our field workers, our peacemakers, our center coordinators, everybody, our peace crafters, we refer to them as a dragon slayer. And what does it mean to be a dragon slayer? Which is exactly what you kind of referred to. How do you go through your day and you have to experience, this immense grief and sorrow? And I must admit, there is a sort of grief that sits very deeply in your soul. It doesn't go away. I don't know whether it's fortunately or unfortunately. I mean, maybe if it went away, you will stop what you're doing. But all of us sits with a soul that's taken some strain, and that's, there's just a sadness on your soul. But we say we also have courage, and we are dragon slayers out of courage, and courage is contagious. So we see the women and the girls doing amazing things. We at the end of the day still get to go home. They have to go back to their home where we know it's not safe. And that courage gives us courage. And the dragon slayer is someone that can get up every day, be in this, almost battle, and slay the dragons. And slay as many as you can, and then tomorrow, get up and be a dragon slayer again. And so, we really we try and look after our team. And as I said, we very supportive, purposefully supportive. But many of us will and have faced some kind of just burnout at some time. It will be wrong of me to say that it doesn't take strain. It takes a lot of strain on so many of us, but we're hopeful, we're courageous, we are inspired by the women and the girls that we serve, and we want to be dragon slayers every day and not get tired of loving.
Awesome, brilliant stuff. So moving on to the next one now, quickly onto the influencers category of great stories. Undoubtedly, I know there is an unsung hero in your house, your husband, who is major source of inspiration. I mean, I'm a personally big fan of him. Not so easy to let, because it's not about allowing you to pursue your passion, but it is allowing you to feel painful.
Yes.
I believe that's the biggest. I think as a husband, I think that's the biggest thing anybody can do. That okay, fine, I'm here all the time. I'm gonna support you unconditionally. Please live your dream stuff, right? So who are some of these influencers, both within your family or outside your family, who's kind of keeping you kind of up and charged up?
So Sunil, you're right. I mean, I think, first and foremost is my husband, because, if you love somebody deeply, you don't want to see them suffer or have pain, and you sometimes want to fix it. Like, you see somebody grieve and you want to fix it. And, in the work we do, although there's the hope and the courage, as I mentioned before, there's always parallel to it is a deep grief. And, it took my husband and I quite a while to realize that grief is not a weakness. That grief is, if you harness it correctly, it actually becomes a strength over time. But he still needed to allow me to grieve without wanting to take it away or fixing it. And that's quite, that's quite difficult. But he's been one of My Choices Foundation's biggest cheerleaders and fans right from the start, and so we tremendously appreciative of his belief in our work. And then if I think of other influences, the lives of many rest on the courage of a few, and there will always be people that stand out. And remember, we stand on the shoulders of women who have gone before us, and if I think of one, it's Ms. Indira Jaisingh, who was actually the lawyer who was pivotal in the implementation and the drafting of the Prevention of Women Domestic Violence Act, 2005, and it took many years to get to the point to get that act put through Parliament. And it's still seen as one of the most almost well thought through domestic violence acts globally, because in a way it treats, civil and criminal rights differently, where many women before couldn't actually go to the police to report abuse because then the husband will get a criminal record. This act was designed in such a way that first it's only civil, it's like a warning, so that's opened up the space. And that's for us also why we could do the work we do, as Get Women to Go. And then I actually want to talk about sort of three more influences. And again, I'm going to come back almost to the work we do, because that's where we get most of our drive and our passion and our inspiration. The second sort of biggest influencer in my life is the team that I work with. And we have people that have come from corporate careers and has coming in with all their experience and all their skills and all their knowledge and joined My Choices, knowing that this journey they're going on is going to completely change their life forever. And I want to also recognize, admire, and respect the men in our leadership team. Men who are good fathers, men who will, who will change the world to change the world of the girls, and the honor to work alongside such good men, such good fathers. It was, people have to understand, you don't have to drag men down to pull women up. That's not the thing. We can both lift up, each other. And then I just want to, if I have the time, just talk about two other influences. When we started our Operation Red Alert helpline, national helpline, and we've now received over 42,000 calls on that helpline. In the beginning, almost 80% of those calls were done by girls in the village or parents in the village that phoned us where we've done our programs to equip them, against trafficking, just to say thank you. Like literally, they will phone us and say, thank you for coming to my village. Thank you for helping me to be safe. Thank you for teaching my daughter how to be safe. Thank you for teaching me how to be safe. We call them guardian girls, girls that look after one another. And we have had so many calls from guardian girls that will phone and say, my friend is 15 and her parents are getting her married. Please help. You know, those are influencers. Those are the people that's the girls, the boys, the community that have the most influence. And then, you know, another story is one of our clients has had a really, really abusive home, and she's been a client for us for some time, and then she kind of disappeared. And then 2 years later, we had this emergency call, and she was literally fleeing with 2 of her young children. And you know, we had to get our peacemakers out in the middle of the night. Our peacemakers are actually out in the middle of the night very often, but they always go out as a team. And they are dragon slayers. You know, we look at a dragon slayer that, and she was fleeing with her 2 children, and you know, she was then safely put into our safe home. But she has gone from being abused for so many years with 2 young children, and she's now actually the matron or the mother of our safe home. She literally looks after our safe home, you know, taking in all these broken women and girls. That's an influencer. You know, if she can do that, if she can come from those circumstances with no hope, abuse, exploitation, but with that amount of courage, well then, you know, then we all can be dragon slayers. And I think one last one, which for me still to this day, if I think about it, it was also at our very first training in Falaknuma, and we had the training the whole day. I very ignorantly started the training in May, and you know, we 50 women packed into a room as big as you know, your foyer, and it's hot, and there's, you know, there's no electricity, and we're boiling, and we had 6-week training, and that was my inauguration into Hyderabad summers. And so at the end of the day, I walked just outside of the room or center down the steps, and there's one of our trained peacemakers who can speak some English, and next to her there's a she was wearing a burqa, so I could only see her eyes, but she's tiny. You know, I walked up to her and she grabbed my arms, and she's frail, she's skinny, but she held on with such a grip. And she said, so she's 17, she was married when she was 12, she already has 3 children, and she is abused every day, both physically and sexually, by her husband. And she was on the verge of giving up. And for the first time, someone has come to the community, and it was our peacemakers, that told her, you know, there's someone that will stand up for you. There's someone that will be a voice for you. There's someone that can protect you. And, you know, she hung on to me, sort of just sobbing, but it wasn't sobs of despair. It was sobs of gratitude, you know, and sobs of hope. And that forever changes your life. You know, yes, we are into having a big dream. Yes, we are into, you know, we're across 8 states in India already. Yes, we are into impacting as many people as we can. But ultimately, it's about people. It's about that one girl locked up in her home who has been given a voice, you know, who's been given hope, who has been given courage, and not necessarily by us, by the community, you know, by the peacemakers we've trained. And that will never leave you, you know, that will never leave you.
So Elca, you spoke about predominantly category of girls or women who are getting abused because of lack of education or lack of social background, or people who are coming from low economical background. And I'm sure you'll agree with this, that this is also happening with rich communities where husband is super educated, probably have some psychological issues or something like that, or some stigma or something of that sort. But who's going to talk to them? Who's going to let them know that you don't have to worry about the social status, but you can definitely open up, because it is about you. It is not about the whole thing, because at the end of the day, when you sleep, you are sleeping with a pain within your heart. nobody else is seeing that, right? So how do we tell them that you absolutely don't have to worry because we're going to only deal with you and we're going to take you out of the pain? So what is something that we could do for people like that?
Yes, I mean, Sunil, what you touch on is one of the areas we almost, if I say struggle with, I mean that we grapple with as a team. You know, most is how do we reach that demographic? You know, we both are, the husband and the wife are educated, because we have found that it is even more difficult in that situation. Because there's more power involved, you know, and they are not as open, you know, to come and have a conversation because of the social stigma. And then sometimes, as you will know, the families might even know, but they also don't want to disclose it, again because of the, you know, what would the community say. So in those instances, what we have tried as a team is realizing we have to have a very different strategy. It's not about bringing the women and the families to our counseling centers. And I said, we've got counseling centers all across Hyderabad. And I just want to say one quick thing before I get to that. You must realize that a boy that grows up in a home where there's abuse are 5 times more likely to perpetuate the abuse. You know, so you have many of these educated families where that's not to justify it, but that's all they ever saw was, you know, the way you interact or deal with your family is through physical discipline or violence. And that's a really very difficult demographic. So what we've done is our strategy is different. That's where we have a lot of sort of campaigns on social media and platforms. So a while ago, we ran the Respect to Protect campaign, where we actually had the Indian cricketers like MS Dhoni, Virat Kohli. We would do these short clips with them where they will talk about our Respect to Protect. The only thing I will ever hit is and then it would say a ball, you know, or a bat, or you know, playing on that line. That's the only thing I will ever hit. So, and that campaign actually that year won the social media campaign with the best impact or outreach. We also, and that reaches that market, and then we have our helpline number. So it's a way that those women will see it, because, you know, it's a platform they will be familiar with. We also had a partnership with Breakthrough, who's a big advocacy platform that was started in Delhi. And to answer your question, they addressed in their campaign the bystander, meaning you know, in this instance with the demographics, none of the husband or wife might want to talk about it. But there is a bystander that knows, you know, it's the person next door, or it's the, you know, it's the uncle that actually knows, or even though they live in an apartment building. And this campaign addresses this whole thing about the bystander. You don't have to get physically involved, but let us know, you know, so ring the bell, or just knock on the door, or, you know, if you see the person in the morning, say, oh, how was your night last night? They'll know, you know, there was a big fight, you know, or things were thrown, and it's because we have to shine a light on this. And then again, we give our toll-free number. We also have an app that was designed by a company that's also a partner of us, and in South Africa, actually, Merlin Technologies. And it's an app where on our platform, you can take a quiz. And it's very nicely designed, very, you know, well integrated. And you take this quiz to determine what is the health of your relationship. And it you know, it's an algorithm that runs, and then you kind of grade it, like, this is what my day looks like. And then always in between, it's, you know, have you ever experienced this? What's your level of fear? And then it actually, right at the end, it gives you a red, green, orange, or yellow to have an indication of what is the magnitude and the severity of the abuse in your relationship. And then again, it brings them back to our helpline number. So this demographic is huge, obviously, as you know, and growing forever. And we as a team, these are some of the stuff we've come up with, but we're going to really have to do much, much more to get into this market, that we know the numbers are the same, the percentage, but it's even more difficult to address it and get counseling for these families.
So Elka, for the people who are watching us live or people who will be watching this at a later point of time, could be at any age group. It could be a men also who's watching this, specifically for women. So all that they need to do is to call a helpline number if they need some help. That's all they have to do, and things will change for them. At least things will be better, if not kind of completely solved, but things will become better for them. Is it the right message for all the girls?
Yes, and remember, as I said, this thing about being a bystander. Yes, of course, please, phone the number, because then it puts into action, everything that flows. And we have a very holistic approach. So we have our peacemakers, we have counselors, we have lawyers. So we will take a family. On average, it takes us between 6 to 9 months on this journey to take a family from brokenness, and pain to hopefully peace in the home. It's not a one-time session, because first you actually have to give the women her value back. You have to give her courage back, because if she doesn't have that, it's too difficult to then bring in the perpetrator. And it's one of the things we do at My Choices. Counseling can never be concluded or done without the perpetrator and the family, because otherwise it's like you have a team, let's say you have a cricket team, but you only give somebody a ball and not anything else to play with. Both need a ball, both need a bat, or both need, protection. You can't just give one of them a tool. So we always counsel the perpetrator and the person that's being abused, whether that's, a father with these children, and obviously the mother will be involved. And if it's a minor, it immediately becomes a different case. Then it becomes that's something that always have to be going to the child welfare. And you have a legal obligation, if it's a minor, to report it. So any bystander, actually under the Indian law, has to report when they know a minor is being sexually abused. But yes, so be a bystander, but you can do more than just phone the helpline. You can knock on the door, because in that heat of the moment, when the woman is being abused or hit or kicked, or even if you just knock and walk on, you diffuse that situation. So that's the whole bystander, ring the bell, knock on the door, walk past, say good morning to them in the morning, that she knows, somebody knows. But then, yes, please. And I know on your platform and on our, all our platforms is the domestic violence helpline, which is national, as well as our anti-trafficking helpline. So yes, please.
Awesome.
And we also have a WhatsApp, almost emergency WhatsApp number that someone can just WhatsApp with the word help, and we will immediately start.
Awesome stuff. So quickly moving on to the next one, which is transformation. Most of the points you did cover when you responded onto the previous topics, Elka. So I have one question. How can women build resilience among themselves? Because that is big thing for every woman. I think that's a birthright for everybody to stand up to say that, hey, this is what I want to buy. This is what I want to wear. This is what I wanted to study. This is what I wanted to eat. I think these are the basic things that every man do kind of effortlessly. These are a big concerns to a lot of girls and women in India. So how do they build that confidence, self-confidence, and build that resilience among themselves so that they can actually fight for what they like to do?
Yes. Similar to, I think there's a lot of depth and complexity to that question. I will almost start off by saying, the women and girls we have met and served so far, probably all of them already have so much resilience just to have come this far, you know, and to be in a home where you might have, you know, we've had clients that might have been in homes where they faced 14, 15, 16 years of abuse. And the reason they stay is mostly because of the children, you know. So because if they leave, then that abuse is going to fall on the children if they can't take the children with. So to answer your question, the first part is most of these women, you know, just to live in those circumstances where there might be so much abuse or exploitation, the fact that they are there, the fact that they really want their children, the same for their children as you and I want for our children, is already a reflection of their resilience. I think where it does come in is it's going to have to be a transformation of a mindset, but almost more in the mindset of young girls and boys. We're going to have to bring into the school curriculum, you know, what does it mean to respect the other gender, both ways? What does it mean to value? What does it mean that we are both created equal? It's going to have to start when you're 5 or 6 years old or 7 years old, you know. And just if we have a minute, there was an extremely potent, powerful clip that was made. There was this little 10-year-old girl, and I'll be quick, and there were like 3 or 4 little boys that they had, and this, you know, they would ask the boy, go up to the girl and give her a bunch of flowers, and then you'll see them giggle, and, you know, and then the next boy would come up and, you know, give her flowers, and they would giggle, and, you know, and then the director looks the boy in the eyes and say, now go up and slap her. And you can see the confusion, the utter disbelief, the utter, I can't do that. Like, what do you mean? So we were not made to abuse one another. You know, that's not, it comes over time through systems and mindsets and thinking and culture. And we're going to have to start sowing and feeding into India's children, into our children from they're young, how to treat one another, how are we all equal, how to value one another, what does gender respect mean? Because the women are resilient. I can assure you, you know, and we work in India, but I know it's all across the world, but I've never met so many resilient women. So they are resilient. We don't actually have to teach them that. What we have to do is to make sure that we respect one another, you know, that we love one another, that we value one another. They will stand up. Their resilience is there. You know, as I said at the beginning, sometimes all we need to do to lift women up is not to pull them down. The resilience is there. We just need to, you know, work alongside. And for that, we need men to be part of the solution. You know, we need men to partner with us. We need men to believe in women. We need men to raise their boys to become the type of good fathers that we want them to be.
Brilliant stuff. I didn't realize I've already taken a lot of time from you. We've crossed 1 hour already. So even though my heart is not allowing me to conclude this discussion, my mind says I should respect your time and stick to the agenda. So I'll have to kind of take a pause, and I will certainly take an opportunity to know more from you in the coming days. Thank you so much for sharing this impactful story. As our conversation, I did take some notes. I'm going to quickly recap that for everybody's benefit so that they can understand what we spoke about. So dream is something you want to do. Calling is something you have to do. I think you followed the calling. It is a message for everybody. Follow your calling so that you have to do it. That's all about it. And you beautifully put across this 4 piece of a grid: purpose, passion, and perseverance, and also have a plan B. You clearly mentioned about it. Amazing stuff on that. Something, you hear the pain only when you get so close, meaning you can't feel the pain if you're not close to them. That made you meet a lot of people so that you understand their pain. You listen to that so that you kind of basically transform their lives. So, and another important message which you mentioned is financial freedom is not about having a lot of money if they're getting beaten up every day. So I think that's an amazing message for every woman out there who are listening to this right now and who are going to listen to this later. Living in a very comfortable house or having money to spend is not something that you should look for. If you're in pain, please do reach out to help. At the end of the day, it is your life, so it is very important you reach out to this. And ignorance of available information of women is something that you spoke about their rights, about things that can protect us, about policies or procedures that can protect us. I think that is something that you spoke about. Every woman should get educated on those things, and I think your team is doing a phenomenal job in that. And another impactful statement that you made is changing a community by changing a home, because everything starts from a home. So you start from the home so that the whole community gets impacted. So you have introduced this concept of local women change makers who are actually making a lot of impact, and we also call them as lifting them is. I mean, we believe in lifting them up is not. I mean, lifting them up is not something that we need to do, but not put them down is something that you spoke about. It's a brilliant stuff on that. And when it comes to kind of making thinking about having bigger dreams, also consider the fact that the steps can be smaller. So small steps, big dreams, and ideas in mind, but conviction is something that we need to kind of focus on. Ideas in mind are still okay, but conviction is something which will kind of take them to larger heights. So you have beautifully created the chain reaction element by training women and empowering them to train other people. So I think this is where you build a larger community to kind of have more change makers for this particular thing. And I'm flabbergasted to see these numbers: 9,000 families, 63,000 girls, 80,000 women, 8 states, and on an average for each family, it takes about 6 to 9 months of journey to touch their lives and transform them. I think I think these numbers speaks volumes. I think it's not so humanly possible for somebody. Amazing impact on that, and you just provocated on or stressed upon having a right clarity and right commitment for your goals, and so for something that we need to achieve is something that you spoke about. And two important things that you spoke about is what should and what would. I think that's a very powerful statement for everybody to kind of go back and think of what should and what would. Beautifully put. And you also talked about importance of doing uncomfortable things so that you can kind of achieve your goals. I think it's for every woman. The girl who met you at Falaknama was an uncomfortable goal for her to kind of reach out to you, talk to you, express and seek the help, right? I think there are a lot of such uncomfortable things people should do so that they basically get what they deserve or what they wanted to. So another very powerful true leadership statement that you made is strive for excellence, not for perfection. I think that's a very powerful thing which will help everybody. And you made sure that your processes and procedures are always effective. You always optimize them and you design them in a way that they are sustainable, and also you look at them at a scale. So these are four important aspects that you spoke about. And you did mention about importance of taking care of responsibility in terms of self, family, team, and people. I think that is the same thing applicable for every category of people when we do this. And various important, amazing things. I think the most frightening thing for you is on the day 2 of your training session on the first set of people who got kind of trained. Funny, but I know how scary it could be not to see anybody at all. And all these kudos to all these dragon slayers who are kind of taking this true firewall kind of stuff, take so much pain but give only positivity, like the tree who takes carbon dioxide but only give oxygen kind of. These are truly reflection of those people. And grief is not a weakness, grief is a strength, is something that you've kind of great to kind of have this kind of a conversation, you and your husband. I think that is something really amazing stuff. And you spoke about this wonderful lady Indira Jaisingh ji, who had designed a domestic violence act which you acknowledged to be very effective and powerful. And really like the way you put across these guardian girls element by kind of sowing the seed in these people where you physically are not present but your presence is felt there. I think that is some amazing strategy over there. And as a process, you strongly believe that every woman, before giving anything else, give her value back. give her value back so that she feels better, and then she's in a position to kind of understand whatever it is. I think that's a brilliant thing that you spoke about. And and you did mention amazing thing which is very, very powerful. Not many understands that women by default are having a lot of resilience. I think women are resilient to many things. That is an amazing statement that you made. And you did spoke about transformation of mindset for young girls and boys. It can start from the school curriculum itself, so that they become an asset to the nation and not become a burden to the nation, right? And Miss Elka, I must mention, you are one of the finest Hyderabadi pearls I have ever met. It has been an absolute honor hosting you today to the Grit Stories. I must mention that the level of our effort with this episode is only going to go 10x or 20x with your presence. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your Grit story. All the very best. May God be with you all the time. And do consider us if we can be part of this journey at any point of time. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Sunil.